All right, guys, so today is finally the day to take apart the S63. It's been here on the engine stand for about a week. We just had not time to do it. We have all this happening over here. We're waiting on one more piece, and this thing could be totally finished up, about together, and that'll be done out of the way. We're trying not to get too many parts taken apart here. We took both cars apart because the parts takes long to get, and I figured it was better to do it that way so we're not waiting on just one thing. Anyhow, we have to take this apart to tell what's going on. What we're gonna do today is check the bearing, see if it has a broken rod, and see if it's a rebuildable core. Now, a lot of you are telling me in the comments that it's not rebuildable no matter what because the cylinders are gonna be ovaled out and you can't fix that, and on and on and on. If the injectors are bad, the injectors are $3,500, it's not worth fixing. It seemed like it ran okay. The gas was the oil was fairly gassy, but not like something was wrong gassy. So we're gonna try not take any of this off at first. We're gonna flip it upside down and take the small oil pan off and see if we get in there and see what's happened inside this engine just by accessing that. And if that doesn't work, depends on what we find in there, we might have to pull the heads off no matter what and see what's happened. But the sea of hoses, I'm a little hesitant on this. We got to make sure we get all this back together, and we're already far enough apart and complex enough, it's already going to be a real bear putting it back in the car. So let's get started. Let's start off with, let's pull the little oil pan off first. And then if we have to, we'll pull the big one off, the big oil pan, we'll have to take the diff off. And looks like just a few brackets, nothing too, you know, nothing too absurd maybe. So we have up here our drain plug, obviously. We have our oil level sending unit. Loctite it or something in, turn hard all the way out. Might have to use the damn big impact. Let's get the big one. These all have gray Loctite to some degree on it. Some of them are tight, some of them are real loose. That's definitely not a factory situation at all. I'm gonna grab a rag here and let's try to pry this thing off of here. Probably got to get a pry bar. Let's just see. Nope. Just sitting on there loose. Oh boy. All right, let me try to, yeah. It's just nasty. I don't see any chunks, but it's all covered in real fine gray material. I'll set this on the cart. Actually, I set this on this little bucket because that baby's nasty. Nasty. All right, so we got oil pump. We're gonna have to take the big pan off to do anything in here. And there is a lot of bolts. So let's start by pulling this diff off. We'll get this off of here. We're gonna have to pull, what's our oil filter housing status here, boys. Total nightmare. That might come with the oil pan, actually. All right, so I just stuck my finger in the pickup, and there is some little parts, metal parts in there, but only about 5 or 6 of them. And then I just undo the oil filter. Let's go ahead and you gonna overflow over the place? That'd be awesome. Oh, you nasty. You nasty. A couple little specks down there, if you can see on camera or not. Doesn't really feel like bearing material. Kind of makes the guy wonder. Kind of makes the guy wonder just a little bit. Where am I going to put this? I don't know, boys. I didn't think that far ahead. I don't really see anything. Stuck in the filter at all. Some little shiny pieces, but nothing. Like no chunks, right? We're going to put this up here for right now, just to get it out of the way. We may pull that apart after some of the goo drains out of it. But look, the oil in this thing has not been changing forever. It's just coal black. It doesn't really smell that gas. It doesn't smell unnaturally gassy, which kind of labels out a leaky injector. Look at this over here. There's a piece of metal laying. Right here. That's probably a piece of bearing. Now, let me recap this, guys. If you have a BMW that has rod bearing problems, doing the Blackstone oil send-off will not help you. It will not help you. The M5 we did, it came back with a clean Blackstone history report before I got the car. It gave me the paper with it. That car, the rod bearings are totally gone on it. Obviously this one has rod bearing fragments because it's probably just coming apart and probably has not had the oil change in about 10 years. Now the owner did tell me that he paid the shop to change oil, but they did not change oil. I could 100% guarantee you. So more than likely they took his money and that was it. Or they drained it, seen some chunks in it, and just put it right back in. But at any rate, they still charge them for the oil. Got a couple 18 mils here. I'm just going to hold into it until I get both my hands up here. We're going to pick it up off of here and just set it right there. Hey. And that reveals all of the bolts on this side. We got to pull off to get this upper pan off. We are going to need a 10 mil, so let me grab that. So a lot of you guys are going to ask, if you have a F10 M5, if you have X5m, X6m, what's the mileage that these have problems? 90,000, 80,000. That's kind of the meltdown mileage. A lot of guys don't agree with that, but I have some bad news for you. That's the way it is. Nothing you can really do about it. That's when you have to do rod bearings, no later, or you're going to end up with this. And this is an insanely expensive job. That's with me doing it. Parts only, if we could do it for cheap. We don't even know until we get it apart and see what's going on. But this at the dealership is $30+ thousand setup. And that's probably being very conservative on the price of doing any of this stuff. Pull that out of there. Now we're all loose. That's what she said. I'm gonna pop this out. Try to hook those lines right there. And what we're gonna do here is put back in these bolts, because if you don't do that, I can hear it running, but I can't see it. If you don't do that, it's gonna be a bad situation for everybody involved, mainly the person working on it. And the more you can put back in the holes, the better off you're gonna be. Okay, is there any more 13 mil or any more 10 mil? I think that's it. Let's go ahead and commence to start pulling all of these E-Torques out. But this thing just leaked out of, at 114,000 miles, this thing literally leaked out of every single orifice in the whole entire engine. It pretty much needs a total rebuild. It's almost like diesel oil by the way it looks and smells. I have to go inside when this is all out and take all the bolts out of the inside. Oh. You see what that did? It broke off. All right, then we're gonna put that back in. That's pretty much loose except for those two hoses. There's something running out somewhere. We'll leave it there. So we did break a bolt, as you've seen. Did it break above the surface? Nope, it didn't. It broke below. So we'll have to drill and tap that out. So all the bolts are off on the outside. We're gonna have to go on the inside. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that I can see right now. So, but we should be getting close to having this lower pan off, and that'll reveal all the inside. Have a windage tray take off the way it looks, and we might be down to the rod bearings. Like you guys are gonna say, oh, that bolt broke because you used an impact. No, if you try to use that ratchet on that, it would have broke way before this, because your prying is going crooked with the ratchet. There was 2 bolts over there that were freakishly tight. This impact could barely take them out, and one of those 2 is the ones that snapped, which leads me to believe somebody has been all through this thing before. Been in here touching stuff, not in a good way. All right, pull the last one out. All right, so the question is that all of the bolts? But here there is 2 bolts in the oil filter housing. You can't see that because it's full of oil. This engine is very Even Philip was saying how stinky this thing is. It smells like diesel. It's just nasty. Nasty, nasty. Hey, 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 hey. So the question is that all up now? If not, what we have to do, like you always should do, is stop the camera, go look it up. But since I just found those, we'll see. That's it. Got lucky. Ordinarily, if there's any question, we don't mess around. We go look it up. A lot of shops don't do that. Well, we aren't a shop, per se, is that meaning. A lot of people don't do that. Ew. And that'll cause you all kinds of heartache and grief. Never think you're too good to look something up on the internet. That's for sure. Okay, so this won't come off of here. We got to take the pickup tube off. Those are Torx. Next day, I forgot I had an appointment. We had to run away really quick, so everything's just like it was. I just took the impact, broke loose. There's 2 bolts on the pickup. We'll let Philip get in here and show you. And you have to take this off before you can take the upper oil pan off, we'll call it. Dang. All right, so that side's done. Didn't realize they were that long, or I would have took them out the impact almost all the way. All right. Jesus. You can see there's chunks down inside the, oh, look at all that. Chunks of metal all down inside there. So that's going to be a problem. There's metal all, I don't know if you can see this or not. Let me take a little more off here so you can see a little more. Right up this big pan off. I was unprepared. Not sure where to set this. I'll set it over here on top of this crap for right now. You're gonna say, aren't you worried about getting it dirty? I think we're already past that. So here's the old engine. Very interesting. So is this the actual oil pump, or is this like a Vanos pump? It's like it's probably the actual oil pump. And let me grab a ratchet for this. We'll be right back. It's totally freaking locked up. So why is it locked up? That's the thing. I'm looking here on the rod, so I'm going to show you a couple things. Looking in here, you can see on this rod, it's very rainbowed. That means there's been a lot of heat in it. These other rods are not like that. I would say that one and this one's both rainbowed. That one's not, that one's not. These are all fine. And these are all fine. So our problem is going to be right here. So which one's locked up? Well, boys, we don't know. Let's go ahead and take this rod cap off. It's the only one we could reach. And hopefully we'll get lucky and that'll free it up enough where we can turn it over and get the other one out. All right, so let's go ahead and pull off the first rainbowed cap here. Oh, mommy, look at that. That one's got a little click to it. But I don't think this is the seized up one. I think this one is, and that's unfortunate for us. Bearing's gone. So, okay, so whenever that happens, and these are cold sheared it's not the exact word for it, where they break these. So you can't flip them around. That doesn't exist. There's no bearing in this one at all. And you can see where the rod's been scratching the bearing. So spun rod bearing. Let me see if I can, man. There's just chunks and chunks and chunks of crap everywhere. All right, so let's do this. Set that right there. Let's get the breaker bar back on it and see. I can't break it. How are we gonna do this? This thing was a real nightmare taking it out of the car with it seized up. Why was it seized up? We don't know. The last time I started it was on camera, and it's not like it was knocking a lot in there before. And when I turned it off, it sat here for about a week and a half on the lift, and we took it apart. And as soon as we started taking it apart, we had to turn the engine over, get the torque converter bolts out, and it wouldn't turn. So this one, you hear it. That one's loose also. Tight. I don't know, let's just see. Let's keep breaking rod caps off. Not breaking them, taking them off. And see if we get to one that's locked. Maybe we'll get lucky. Yeah. So there's no problem with that, but look at the wear on that. It's just so far. Wipe it off for you. I mean, it's not horrible, but there's been some heat in it for sure. Let me put that back on. I'm just going to finger it in place. That's what she said. And we just don't want this to interfere when we're turning it over. Just barely do a little bit of that. A little bit of that. Let's do this one next. What also concerns me about this engine, we were taking that oil pan off. You see in the last clip, a lot of those bolts were wicked tight and the one broken. Actually, right there's a broken bolt. And some were barely tight at all. It makes me believe somebody's already been in it. So this one is getting scored up because it already has trash getting in it from the one that came apart. But this is not locked. I wonder if we have a piece of metal in one of the gear links on the chain, or what's happened here. Ew. All right, this is the one we need to get, but we can't get it, but it's loose. So I don't think that's locked up. Let's go to this one. Oh boy. Set that right there. This one's got trash in it. That one's not down to copper yet. She's getting close though. This was not locked though. That's not the issue. I'll reinstall this thing correctly. So go like that. Here's the thing. I'm not sure the fate of this thing because this thing probably needs an engine. Like this, if this was an M54, I would throw it away. If it had this going on in it. What scares me about this engine, we don't know where every little screen is. The Vanos units have little ports and little tiny little pinhole oil coolant, oil pressure deals, and we don't know where all those are at. So what we don't want to do is put all this back together and it blows up. That's what we don't want to do. I gotta try to push that rod up a little bit. It fell down. And we'll do the same thing. We'll barely snug that up on there. Okay. So this is the one that's all spun and rainbowed. So at the minimum, what we need right now is going to be, and it goes like this, is going to be 2 connecting rods. Once the bearing spins in those, there's nothing you could do to save them because it actually makes the hole in the rod bigger. Here's the thing. On a M54, we could just drop 2 more rods in it. Maybe we'll weigh them out, compare all of them, make sure they're all the same weight. But this is not a 200 horsepower engine, and a lot of times on race engines, that's not okay. So you have to send all the rods to the machine shop, have everything weighed and scaled, because especially on a V8, you don't want any vibration. And because what will happen if you don't do it correctly, it will grenade the engine. Okay, so this one, I mean, that's loose. There's no problem at all. So what's locked up? Do we dare pull the oil pump off? Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. No mathematician, boys, but that don't look good. Chains all stretched out and all jacked up. So to pull this out, I believe there's 4. We got a Torx, a 13 mil, a 13 mil. There's only 3. 3 bolts. I was gonna take the sprocket off. Probably will take the sprocket off. That looks to be a 13, looks maybe be a 16 nut. Let's do that next. We can check these last 2 rods and hopefully we can unlock this engine. Crazy. I was like, did it break it? No, it didn't. All right, so let me take this off of here like so. Always reverse threads on those oil pump nuts. Put that up there. That gives us access to take everything else off. 2 13 mils and this Torx. We're just gonna set that inside that pulley for right now. Same with this one. And then now we got the sprocket off. Let's get Torx. That guy right there. It's just freaking oozing nasty crap everywhere. Okay, let's try to leave that in here. We have either a tube or a push rod over here. It's gonna lock that in there, isn't it? Is that locked under the starter? Some kind of crazy stuff. Nope. Thank God. Okay. Let me put this over here. Oh, look at that. Awesome. I was just thinking, you know what? We just need some oil all over the floor. All right, guys, so it's about a week later, a few days or a week later. We kind of been waiting on this, talking to the owner of the car and stuff, trying to figure out what direction to go. There's a couple things. So let's say we could find a crankshaft with match bearings. There is a guy or a company, or maybe just some dude selling them on eBay for $1,000 that were matched. I'm a little leery about that, about trusting that. We need at least 2 rods, possibly 4 rods. It's locked up tight. We haven't stripped it all out and taken it all apart because there's so much stuff on it. I don't want to get everything strung out, and it's almost impossible to put back together. So there's 2 options from this moment on. A rebuilt engine is essentially $8,000, a reman. So there is that. We would have to do that. So if we go that direction with this, I like to be able to put it on the engine stand next to this one and swap parts out one at a time. It's going to be a lot more easy for me to do that. The second part is to sell it just like it is. Put the oil pan back on, sell it just like it is for like 10 grand, the whole car, everything, and just go on to something else. So if you guys want an X6m for like 10 grand, let me know. But that's the situation. He hasn't decided that's maybe an option for sure, but we're definitely open to inquiries at this point. But it's just too much. So the other problem is the oil coolers. We have 2 oil coolers on this thing. One's $547, the other one's $755. We can't really use the original oil coolers. Well, we can. Maybe we can take the machine shop, get them boiled out. I don't know. I'd be a little leery doing that. There is used ones on eBay for $100, $200, but 99.9% chance if an S63 car was in the junkyard, it's going to have this problem. This has become such a common problem with all it. The newer ones aren't quite as bad. The newer ones still do that. So many, tons and tons of stories of people just driving, like almost to pull in their driveway and the engine just seizes, and that's it. Then you're done. Then you're in this spot. So if somebody wants to take on a massive project, we're definitely open to sell it just like it is. For the owner, this is a lose-lose situation. Copart got him on the hook like so many others and just raked out his pocketbook, or will rake out his pocketbook, and that's it. So, you know, my thoughts to him were, I think in the long run, if you took a loss on it now, you're better off. We still haven't driven this thing on the road. We don't know. The transmission fluid looked dark, but it was like totally good maybe. We only drove it off and on the trailer, and that's all I know about it. But everything is here. That's not in the same car, it's the E46. Everything is here for it. It's outside. As far as we can tell, the turbos are more than likely good, especially at that mileage. But if we do swap everything over, we'll get the camera on for sure doing any of that. And that's it. But that's the close for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back very soon with the solution to this nightmare.